Getting older can sometimes suck, and getting older in the age of social media definitely sucks. If you're tired of people telling you to age gracefully, then you're in the right place. This is all about living your best life at any age. First rule, don't call me ma'am. Hey everyone, welcome to Don't Call Me Ma'am. I'm Jodi Miller and don't call me ma'am. I'm really excited about today's guest, but before I introduce her, I just want to explain what happened today because it sort of like transitions into who I'm about to introduce. I was having a really bad morning. You know those mornings where you have plans and then your child is like, "Oh, you have plans today?" Well, fuck that. I have my own plans. So after a bowl of cereal went flying in the air and we changed and I got into the car, I was driving here, and I say driving, and by that I mean I was stuck in traffic. So I had a lot of time to think, and I thought, when did life become so difficult? For me, to be honest with you, I remember going through my 20s and thinking, well, I mean, I'm adulting and I've got to pay my bills, but things are relatively easy. And it wasn't until I was like middle-aged that things became more difficult and more challenges started coming up. And I thought, wow, I'm really lucky. And then you meet people that are younger than you that are presented with challenges or difficulties that other people their age are not presented with. And that made me think of my incredible guest today, who I have known since she was 12, which makes me feel so weird considering I was only 15. I'm kidding. I'm like 22 now. No, I've known her for more than a decade. We've gone through a lot of different levels of our friendship. It's crazy. We're going to get into that. And she is a parent as well, and we're going to talk all about that. Please put your hands together. And by that, I mean pull over to the side of the road and start clapping right now for Andalusia Mesa. Yay! Okay, so let's just start out with our quick little how do we know each other story, because you're all wondering. I've been doing comedy for 150 years. And you started coming, how old? You were 12?
I was 12 years old, sneaking into your shows.
She was sneaking into comedy clubs. So basically what she's saying is that most comedy clubs do not have the best security. A 12-year-old, she looks like she's 13 now. So imagine what she looked like when she was 12. You just came in, but you came in with your mom. And this was actually a restaurant as well that had comedy.
And I brought my friends, and that made me popular, bringing them to your shows.
Of course.
I was the coolest.
Of course.
Rebel.
I mean, you are the coolest. You basically brought your friends and were introduced to a lot of dick jokes at 12 years old. Did you even understand any of my comedy?
They're half, maybe.
Half? Or did you do one of those things where you're just laughing because other people were laughing?
Oh, yeah, it's contagious.
Yes, it's contagious, right? Was your mom just like, this is how she learns about sex through Jodi Miller on stage?
Some drives home, she was just like, oh my God, what have I done?
What have I done? I know, because it wasn't just like me on there. There were definitely other comics that were like really disgusting and vile and hilarious, but like also like probably not the best education for a 12-year-old. But you learned pretty quickly.
Even your, women pee everywhere, we pee everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I would use that. I memorized it. I came to see you so many times. I'd use it as my audition monologue for comedy plays at school.
God, she would use my jokes for audition. Like, I should be getting some
I would give you credit. I would
give me credit.
This is
Okay,
We
great.
Just Pee Everywhere by Jodi Miller.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, there's no joke to that. Yeah, I just basically say that women pee everywhere. We just pee everywhere all the time. So let's fast forward, though, to early 20s. You were early 20s, and I was trying to get pregnant. You knew all about that. I mean, I was past the pregnancy, but I was like thinking about adoption. It was the middle of the pandemic, all of that. And you were like, hey, I'll carry a baby for you. Remember that?
Yes. I remember it very vividly.
Yeah. We sat by my pool. We sat by two different pools, and we talked about it in length. And you genuinely, it wasn't just like, sure, I want to get pregnant. You genuinely wanted to be a surrogate at the time.
Absolutely. It's actually still a dream of mine. I've always wanted to be a surrogate, and at that time, I was not a mom yet. And to be a surrogate through an agency, you had to have had a previous healthy pregnancy.
Right.
And I didn't have that, and surrogacy agencies pay the surrogate maybe $65,000, but it costs $100,000+ to the prospective parents.
Yes. It does. It was a lot of money, and we came up with an agreement, and then I went online and I picked out some sperm, and then I gave it to her, and she put it in her vagina, and that was a bonding moment for us. We did that several times.
I was a little upset you didn't offer to do it yourself.
I mean, I could have, but then we'd both have to be drinking, and then I don't know. A lot of people get pregnant that way too.
We were drinking anyway.
We were drinking. I don't know what we were talking about. I picked out some really good sperm too.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Spoiler alert, she did not get pregnant with my baby. I got my baby in Kentucky because that's where you pick them up. And she got pregnant. First of all, then you married your high school sweetheart, right?
We didn't date in high school. I had a crush on him in high school. And we reconnected years later.
Did he know that you had a crush on him in high school?
No, absolutely not. He had a girlfriend.
Oh, he had a girlfriend.
He's like, I had a girlfriend.
And what happened to that girlfriend? She's nowhere.
I think her and I ended up going to community college together, but like in different departments, so we never saw each other.
Oh, okay.
But she was phenomenal. She was like the lead in all the musicals at school, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't sing.
Yeah, but you could do the women pee everywhere. You could have like totally been like, oh yeah, but do you know Jodi Miller? And she would have been like, oh my god. I mean, you should have just done that around.
Just fame adjacent.
That's right. I mean, so then you guys meet again. You reconnect.
Reconnect.
And got married
we stayed
super
friends.
quickly.
So we were friends for a while, and because I moved back to LA with the idea of being your surrogate.
Yes, she did. She moved back to LA with the idea to be my surrogate. Again, I mean,
in the pandemic.
During the pandemic, I spent over $10,000 buying sperm.
Oh my gosh.
Lots of cash.
I'm
Lots of
so
cash
sorry.
to put up her vagina. I put so much money in her vagina, guys. It's
Oh
like,
my goodness.
it was the opposite of an ATM. I was putting it in.
So
yes.
we became closer friends by being local again, reading each other's scripts, that sort of thing.
Yes, I read her script. She's a phenomenal writer.
Retired. No, just
Retired, just taking a break.
I like that. I like that. So we were reading each other's scripts and got close again as friends, but weren't really single at the same time. And then all of a sudden we were single at the same time and in the same city for the first time since high school. And
cue up the music.
And then we started dating, and less than 3 months later, we eloped at the Beverly Hills courthouse.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually just like, wow, that's amazing. Because I know a lot of people that when they meet the person, they just know. And you guys did already know each other. And I was just so happy for you. And then I was even happier when you announced to the world via social media that you were pregnant.
Yes. And I didn't announce very early. We didn't get married because we were pregnant.
Right.
We were trying. And I waited so long because you don't show for like half the pregnancy your first time. And I was so like self-conscious. So I didn't post until 4 months pregnant.
I know. I remember that. Were you guys driving to Disney or something? I think you posted.
It was just a onesie. It was a Yoda onesie.
Yeah, it was a yoga onesie. I remember it was that. I mean, it was adorable. I was so excited. Then I brought Mackenzie to your baby shower. She had a full cupcake and then a tantrum. So just a note to everybody out there, do not give a 2.5-year-old a full cupcake and then expect to not have a tantrum. And it was brutal. But we had a great time. She also tried to eat the soap that you had in one of your little baby bags. She tried to eat that soap. She had a cupcake, and then there was a Blue Bear soap, and she put that in her mouth. And I was like, well, that's how you learn.
And
that's how you learn not to eat soap.
It was like on a lollipop stick?
It was on a lollipop stick. Who made
My
those?
mom planned it. I didn't plan the baby shower. My mom did.
Tara, what are you doing? But anyway, and then Caper comes, sweet baby Caper. Your pregnancy was completely normal, right?
Totally healthy.
Totally healthy pregnancy. And then I remember you posted a video that he had swallowed some of the amniotic fluid correctly. So you had to stay there. It was kind of a very traumatic birth, right?
Yes, totally unexpected. It was a natural birth plus an epidural, of course. And I had no idea anything was wrong. Like,
did you get all the tests during pregnancy and everything?
Yes, all the tests that are standard and covered by insurance.
Right.
So this, do we jump right into the diagnosis?
We're going to jump in, but I want to ask you a question because we're going to get into the diagnosis in 1 second. I just want to know though, so you just said you did all the tests that were standard. And I mean, you're like in your mid-20s, very healthy. Both of you are healthy. You did all the tests. I mean, I assume most people would just do the ones that insurance were covered. If you had done more extensive tests, do you think they would have noticed anything wrong?
So the only way to diagnose this in utero is with an MRI. And they're not giving pregnant women MRIs.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then, you did everything right. And then you found out pretty immediately that he was diagnosed with, and I cannot say this, so I'm going to pass this over to you.
Hemimegalencephaly.
Did you guys get that? Say it again. It's like super supercalifragilistic. You know what I mean?
Right. No, it's exactly. It's interesting because it does sound like it's spelled, but it's not words you hear.
Right. Okay. Say it again slowly, and then we'll give the initials because that's how I googled it.
It's hemimegalencephaly. One word.
Oh wow, Jesus! It's like why do they have to come up with such a hard thing to pronounce?
It's like other diagnoses that have more specific criteria. Right. So megalencephaly is the whole brain. And then hemi is half.
So half. Okay, so explain to everyone, and it goes by HME, correct? HME. So explain to everyone what that means in Caper's case.
So it's a very rare, they call it mosaic genetic mutation.
Okay.
Where it's not inherited from the parents. It just happens randomly when the embryo is created. It doesn't happen during the length of the pregnancy. And half of the brain grows too fast. It ends up not having more soft, not all the ridges that you expect when you eat salmon every day to have a smart baby.
Right, absolutely.
And it causes seizures in most babies. And Caper had a very severe case. So a lot of kids, you don't see them having their first seizure with this as early as we did.
When do they usually present?
It's different for every baby. We know people who didn't have them, their kid didn't have a seizure until they were 4 months old. And then some people who were diagnosed in adulthood. And there could have been like underlying symptoms that just went unnoticed.
So I'm assuming that case would be a very mild
Yes,
case.
yes.
Okay, so you immediately, as a mom, knew something was wrong.
Absolutely. In the first day, his eyes were doing this twitching thing. And I said, is that a seizure? And we didn't worry too much about it. He was already like being pumped with antibiotics. They thought he had pneumonia from the fluid in the lungs,
right.
Which could have gotten there because he had a seizure during the labor.
Oh my God.
And the doctors and the nurses and the fellows who were there said that's not a seizure. Whenever he was twitching his legs, they were like, if it was, it would be more rhythmic. So for a week after his birth, we were begging them to do an EEG and test if it's seizures. And they just said there wasn't the criteria until we caught it on video and sent it directly to the neurologist at UCLA. And they said, get an EEG on that baby. It's supposed to be a 24-hour EEG to see if any seizures happened.
Right.
Within the first 30 minutes, the EEG was on. Doctors were rushing in with meds, trying to stop one consecutive seizure he was having for that entire 30 minutes, and he could have been having for his entire first week of birth.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is unbelievable. What's more unbelievable is that, look, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not slamming the medical community. Having said that, I've had my own experience with doctors not listening to what you are asking to do. It's like, even if they were like, well, look, we don't have it doesn't fit the criteria, you might have to pay for it. At that point, you're like, do the test. Do the test. You know what I mean? You knew something was wrong. Other people could see something was going on. And if they had just listened, they probably would have seen it, much sooner. And it was only a week. He was only a week old. But the damage had been done.
Oh, absolutely. So they tried to comfort us later on when they weren't intervening with his seizures as he was admitted that there isn't brain damage caused by seizures until they've been seizing for 30 consecutive minutes. And I'm like, he could have been seizing for a whole week. Yes. He might have no brain left.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so with HME, what is the standard protocol as far as treatment and everything? And then obviously what you guys did.
So the first step would be putting them on anti-epileptic medication to see if that reduces the seizures enough. And on a very heavy load of anti-epileptics, Caper was still having 6 seizures an hour.
Oh my God.
So the next thing they try to do is a hemispherectomy. So they separate the 2 hemispheres and potentially remove tissue from the damaged side.
Okay.
And our surgeon, we happened to be at UCLA already. We were at UCLA Santa Monica. They had to transfer us to the Ronald Reagan where they have the operating rooms.
Right.
And the neurosurgeon there happens to be one of the best in the country for this particular condition. So we were very lucky. And he offered to do an functional hemispherectomy instead of an anatomic hemispherectomy.
What's the difference?
So the functional hemispherectomy, they just take out the part of the brain they think the seizures are originating from on that one side, and they separate the two halves. An anatomical is removing the full half of the brain.
Right.
Which he ended up having in his second surgery.
Right. So when you remove, now, by the way, because I am me, and I'm sure most people do this, the second you posted about it, I Googled HME and was reading about what they do and the treatment. And once they separate those hemispheres, and it's the left side of the brain, correct, that it's affected. So the left side of the brain that controls your speech and all of that. So once they separate that and they do, even the first surgery, does that render the left side completely like dead, so to speak? Or is there any function still there?
It's supposed to not have function coming from the left side.
Okay.
He should be fully operating from the right side.
Which, by the way, I also read our brains are amazing organs as far as that the elasticity of it and what it can do. And of course, I'm sure you found that one girl who also has a half a brain,
Right.
who's 13 or 14 now, who's walking and talking and makes jokes and stuff like that. So it she also, I think at 9 months, she was diagnosed and then had the surgery. Of course, that's where I go. You always, when you're reading about, the internet's great and terrible at the same time because it can give you hope and it can also scare the shit out of you with like those kind of things. I'm sure you went down that rabbit hole of everything.
Absolutely. And what we notice personally watching other kids growing up with it is that Caper was the youngest person to ever have this surgery for this condition at 4 weeks old. And they said the younger he has it, the more brain elasticity he'll have, the better he'll adapt.
Right.
But we're noticing that babies who already knew how to hold their head up before their surgery are just relearning.
Right.
And now he's having to learn these things for the first time. So it's hard to tell if it's just delayed or if it's not a function he'll ever have.
Right. So they remove partial, part of the left hemisphere, and then you take them home. I think we saw you then before the second surgery. So what prompted the second surgery to just remove the remainder of it?
So the first surgery, they told us he was going to have a 60% chance of being seizure-free.
Okay.
And he ended up having seizures again after the surgery once we started coming down on medication. So at first, after surgery, no seizures. He was on still that heavy medication load, but he was too sedated to
do anything.
eat
To do anything, yeah.
So we started coming down on the medication very slowly, and then the seizures started happening again. We got to about 4 a day. And then they said, okay, we're going to try the full anatomical left hemispherectomy, remove the remaining parts of the brain, and that'll give you a 50% chance of seizure freedom.
So wait, it was like a 60% chance, but now we're going to go back and we're going to take the rest of the left side of the brain, and now you have a 50% chance. It's like, look, I just have to say right off the bat, like, you're an incredible human being. And I think everybody, when you're faced with certain challenges, I mean, not everybody actually, but a lot of people that I know anyway, when they're faced with certain challenges, you have two choices. You put on your big girl pants and you're like, okay, let's do this. Or you crumble to the floor in a puddle. And I'm sure there were days that you did both, you know what I mean? But like, just to get constantly bad news over and over and over again. It's, you know what I mean, about your child that's what, like 3-4 months at that time? Yeah, I can't even imagine that. But you guys, you did it, right? You did. You had it removed.
And we're your we are first-time parents.
You're first-time parents. You're both also very young. I'm not saying that. I mean, you're definitely an old soul, everyone. No, but I mean, look, I think, like, when you're young and in your 20s, you know what I mean, there's an element of that carefreeness that I was talking about that I didn't, you know what I mean, like, I didn't start dealing with difficult situations until I was a little bit older. Not that I didn't have a problem paying my rent, or I was like, where am I going to live? I moved across the country at 27, so that was hectic. But your 20s are, and you just got married, and it's like, oh, this is our carefree life. And like, no, then just like my daughter flipping her cereal bowl today, like, fuck your plans, Caper was like, oh, let's flip a cereal bowl and see see where it lands and see what my mommy and daddy are going to do.
And then there's the benefit to being younger that I think about.
Of course.
When we're there of like, oh, my body's still strong enough to lift dead weight around.
Mine is not.
Or just for
and I lift
months.
dead bodies all the time, people. All the time I'm lifting dead bodies.
Or just like I ran on adrenaline for months. I was sleeping in a chair in his hospital room or by his bedside in the NICU before we got our own room in PICU. And I 3 hours of sleep tops every night, and I was still a functioning human. I talked really fast, but I was able to be there. My body allowed me to do that. And maybe that's just a mom thing that you just kick into gear, or maybe my youth is a benefit in this scenario.
It's a benefit, and it's also it's your mom. It's a mom thing, because for me too, I had a very traumatic, I became an overnight mom. Even though I was trying, we were trying, I was in the adoption system, it happened overnight. And when I was in the NICU, my daughter was also in the NICU for 16 days. For me, it reminded me of when my mom passed away. Very similar situations, the way my body reacted. Obviously much better outcome with my daughter, but I was in a state of like, you have to do these things. You can operate on 3 hours of sleep because you're running on pure adrenaline. You can do this, you will do it, but then unfortunately the moment you like stop, your body is like, oh, and then you either get sick or it's a lot. So you being younger, healthy, stronger definitely serves you. Do you know what I mean? Because
there's all these little things that we appreciate, and it's like I never could have imagined being in such a severe scenario, but even still I'm like, thank goodness we don't have other kids at home that we have to split the time between.
Absolutely.
Or thank goodness that I have health insurance that covers almost all of this $5 million surgery.
Oh my God. Okay, so Caper today, let's talk about Caper today. So his birthday's coming up.
Yes, this month.
Oh, a year old.
A year old.
But like
feels like so much longer than a year, and also feels like just yesterday.
Yes, I mean that's with every baby, by the way. Okay. Every baby. Oh my God, it's like they say the days are long and the weeks are fast. It is. It's like you turn around and they're all of a sudden like a year old, 2 years old. She's almost 4. It's crazy. It is. That's everybody's scenario. I think for you though, yes, you've definitely had extra long days. And then so now he's home. You and Charles, her husband, have to go back to work.
Absolutely. I've been very fortunate that my company has been so lenient, allowing me to work from home now. I'm supposed to have an in-office job, but I'm working from home and watching Caper full time. So to answer your question, Caper still needs 24/7 eyes on him.
So let's talk about a day in the life of Caper and Andalusia, or whoever is, there that day to do, the heavy lifting. So what is it? How does your day start?
Midnight, he wakes up. Okay. He does not have a schedule, and there are times where maybe we'll go 2 weeks where he only wakes up once in the night for a few hours, which is normal. A baby needs to eat, can't go that long without eating. But there are other times where he's had a seizure at a random point in the day. It's caused him to have an 8-hour nap in that post-ectal phase. And then he wakes up and he's ready to be awake. And our whole clock gets turned around. But he also can't just have a babysitter watching him. It has to be somebody skilled in seizure care, after seizure care, so he doesn't choke on his own vomit or die suddenly from a seizure, which is a possibility at any of these points. It's not a terminal disease that he has, but he could die from it.
Right.
So he constantly needs somebody watching him. I shower on Saturdays, and
Saturdays, guys. She showers on Saturdays. That's going to be our next podcast. We're going to do it on a Saturday, just when she showers,
so that I don't smell so bad.
Obviously.
And we, it's a very big priority to make sure that he's eating whenever he's able to. Right. And when he's awake, he takes down a lower volume than he should. So we have to give him higher calorie food when he is in his waking hours. And so anytime he is willing to eat, I pause whatever I'm doing to handle that. It's a pee when you can, not when you have to household.
For everyone.
Except for Caper. He loves peeing.
Okay, that's
his
great.
favorite. If he
but your
smiles,
husband just is like, I'll just pee in the closet. And obviously, as you said, women pee everywhere because I coined that phrase. Okay, so you feed him.
And that's pretty much all Caper does for the most part is sleep and eat. Sometimes he'll just stare at the ceiling. He likes to look at the ceiling, but there's not a lot of time that he's engaged and willing to participate.
Right.
We did contrast cards from the beginning, and you don't really, it's hard to keep going when you don't see any development.
Right.
Right.
Of course.
So it's just like a trust to continue doing that. And then it's hard when I do have a full-time job.
Yes.
And at this time of year, it's very busy. I'm doing at least 40 hours of work a week. And when I pause in the middle of the day, because Caper needs some things, and I'm paying for it on the back end. And I occasionally have a meeting that I'm on camera and can't tend to Caper immediately, and I just am like, I'll handle it when it's over. But none of my meetings are too long, thank goodness. And it's I don't know what it's like to be with a normal baby. I don't know how it differs, right? He doesn't support his own head. He can't sit up on his own. It's a lot less exciting things, milestones that you get happy about witnessing or proud of him for achieving. But, if we have more good days than bad as far as him smiling, right now he's having a seizure every 60 hours. So sometimes we go 2 whole days without a seizure. And those are usually the better days.
Yeah, those are better days. I mean, like him smiling, or whenever you post a video, your Christmas tree's been up all year because he loves the lights, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's things like that I'm sure bring the joy, into your world, you know what I mean? Or when he coos and recognizes his own voice, which tells me that he's in there. Because we were talking recently, and you were, which I would be too, you're wondering, is there any brain function? Like, are we just, what are we doing here? And they really can't tell you, right?
Right.
What do the doctors say?
You'll know which milestones he is going to hit when he hits them.
Okay. Which is really hard. It is really hard. Because for parents, I talk about, kids obviously do, things in their own time, kids that are not severely disabled, and disabled kids too, but everybody, they all have their own timetable, and I still look at, kids that are her age or younger, and she's not doing what they're doing or saying what she's saying, and of course my brain is like, well, why not? And what, you know what I mean? Like, and for you, it's just like, you're just kind of waiting. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? It's got to be so hard, and you brought up the fact, I mean, this is what you're doing on the daily, which brings up the point, like, why is there not more help, more care for a child that is severely disabled, a special needs child, like a daycare facility that is dedicated to this? Because you are still working. Your husband is still working. You can't take care of him to the best of your ability if you're not taking care of yourself. It is, and this is for every parent out there. That's why they say put on your oxygen mask before putting on your child's. And for a while, I'm sure you weren't, as I would be too. You were not, you know what I mean? But now you know what I mean? Now you know that you have to, because you can't take care of him. You can't be there for him the way you need to be there for him if you're not okay. And I'm sure it would be very helpful if there was a place that you could bring him during the day that would do all the things that you would be doing at home, and maybe even some more because they're qualified to do that. You know what I mean?
Like, daycares exist for infants as early as they need to be. Yeah.
6 weeks. Yeah. My daughter was in daycare at 5 months, but that daycare takes them at 6 weeks. And at 6 weeks they're very much like Caper.
There was one.
Sleeping, pooping.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's not much different.
Right.
But they won't take a kid with epilepsy because they don't want to be the one holding the baby when something happens.
Well, because they also don't have licensed, people that know how to do that. So are there facilities that do actually, would take a kid like Caper, and where are they located?
So our insurance was able to find one that the insurance company would cover his medical daycare. It's in Napa.
Oh, so that's an easy commute. We're in Los Angeles, so like 7 hours.
7-hour drive.
Just wake up and okay, that makes total sense.
Or we relocate. I mean,
it is Napa. If you're going to have that kind of facility, it's better that it's by a vineyard or a winery so that you can also get your drink on. So that's the only one.
And then at 3, the state or the county is supposed to provide public school for them that has people equipped to take care of the kid. And there are a few facilities that we've heard of by word of mouth around the area. You can't just Google it, medical daycare. It doesn't come up. But
That's ridiculous.
I've had 2 people recommend one to me that is over an hour from home, and we're a 1-car family.
And then you do have your insurance covers like registered nurses, like nurses that come to your house and help out, right?
Yes, so we get 200 visits per year on my company insurance.
Okay.
And the first 2 hours is one visit, and then each subsequent 4 hours is another visit. So we can get 100 6-hour shifts. That's not long enough to sleep. That doesn't cover my full work day.
No.
And then on top of that, there are no nurses who want to take these types of cases. They don't want to do, and I'm not poo-pooing the nurses. Of course they don't. Right. This is one of the lowest paying positions for a nurse to have. It's $30 an hour to be in home with one patient. And if they were at a facility where they're checking on multiple patients, it's closer to $36 an hour.
Oh my God. It is ridiculous. It's so infuriating. And I'm sure for you guys, it's just like, what are you supposed to do? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we used 10-hour shifts so that we could get sleep in or occasionally shower on a weekday. And I ran through them. We run through them already.
Of course you do. Mm-hmm. Of course you do.
And we didn't even get a nurse in our position until May. Yeah. And then we've already run out. It doesn't last the whole year.
So wouldn't it be great to have that and also a facility that you know, a Monday through Friday or even 3 days a week that you were able to bring him? And it's like, if there's one in Napa, why wouldn't there be one in Los Angeles? There should be one in every major city. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's a great investment opportunity if you have the...
I just was watching the Martha Stewart documentary, and did you watch it? I did. It's really great. And she said find when she was, in prison. She was saying find where there's like a loop, where there's something missing, that there's a need for something, and create it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying we're creating it today. This is what we're doing. This is actually a fundraiser. Everybody send me your money. No, but I'm saying there has to be people out there. I mean, there are more and more kids, unfortunately, that are born with severe disabilities, severe allergies. There's a lot of, terribleness out there that you wonder why. But instead of wondering why, how about how can we help the parents that, you're right, you don't have other kids at home. You guys do have insurance, but there's a lot of families out there that maybe this is their third child, something happened to them. Right. Having said that, so you found a really great community through social media.
Through social media.
Right.
Through Facebook groups, yes. Through having an Instagram account talking about Caper.
Yes.
And people find us there.
That's so great.
And then I can ask questions on his page and people answer.
That's amazing. Yeah.
In ways that you're not provided resources off the bat that help you get access to this. It has to be through other parents.
It has to be through other parents that have experienced something very similar to what you're experiencing. And it also, I'm sure, makes you feel not alone in this journey, because I can only imagine, as a single mom for me, even when I'm going through something like my daughter is sick, and nobody wants to come and help me because they don't want to get sick and I don't want to get sick, but I know I'm going to get sick and then she's going to get better. I'm going to have to take her. And it is a very lonely place to be. And even though you have your husband, I can't imagine that this hasn't put strain on your relationship.
Absolutely.
So you're probably feeling alone together, but not together alone. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
And it comes in waves. Yeah. Like, we were both in the busiest time of our year at work in October. Mm-hmm. We were at each other's throats at the same time. We ran out of our nursing hours. We are taking turns not sleeping.
Right.
It's not taking turns sleeping. It's taking turns not sleeping. Right. And You know, he's amazing. I could not imagine doing this as a single parent.
No.
Absolutely not. I am so grateful to have somebody else there. And it's hard when you're like trying to lean on each other and being leaned on at the same time.
Yeah. Have you met people in the community that are single parents of like severely disabled children?
Oh my goodness. Actually, not in our condition communities, at least the people showing up. Even we went to an event, a meetup for, it was a promotion for an occupational therapy company.
Right.
And on our way there, Charles was like, am I going to be the only dad there? I feel like dads don't show up to this sort of thing. And then we show up and there are 3 other dads. And it was a beautiful surprise. And the parents who were there, or moms who were there with their sister or their mom, they were talking about their husbands at home.
Right.
So
yeah, when nobody's shitting on husbands, everybody. We're not shitting on husbands. You guys are all great.
Just men.
Everybody's great. Just men in general. We hate you. Oh, no, I'm kidding. No. Yes, of course.
And the statistics of couples staying together are so low.
Right.
With any disability.
Any disability, yes.
It is so rare. But then again, maybe the reason that we're seeing these people is because they have somebody to lean on, that they have the bandwidth to come to these events, have the bandwidth to reach out on social media and help others and pay it forward. And maybe that's why we are seeing this community of like families that are intact.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like, you have this trauma bond.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Yes, you have this like really intense trauma bond. And you guys are always going to be Caper's parents, and you both love him so much. And he is the cutest. You have to, everything will be listed on all social media. You have to go check out Caper. Check out Caper's page too. He is just, I look at him and he's just like joy. He's like the purest soul. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start crying. You guys created this amazing child, and it's like you're going through probably, every parent's worst nightmare. Having said that, there are parents out there that they've had, a healthy, able-bodied child for 7-8 years, and they get cancer. Something happens. You know what I mean? Like, you never know, basically, is what I'm saying. Nobody ever knows. You had a totally normal pregnancy.
Absolutely. And thank goodness we were already admitted for him swallowing the amniotic fluid.
Yeah, what would have happened if you weren't?
It would have been so difficult to get them to take us seriously about having seizures, first of all.
Why? Because they just would have thought you were overreacting?
Exactly.
Or what?
Oh, absolutely. First-time parents especially. Advocating is one of the hardest skills to learn. And if we weren't there, he wouldn't have been able to get the treatment as quickly. Like, I know a family where their son didn't have his first seizure until he was 6 years old, totally normal prior to that, and then now is eating through a tube and in bed for the rest of his life because the ambulance couldn't stop the seizure fast enough, or the ambulance didn't get there fast enough at 6 years old. And thank goodness we know now. Thank goodness we're equipped with the tools to handle this on our own now. And there's so many other like little things where, we absolutely could have it harder.
Right.
Like he managed to get out of there without a G-tube.
Right, yeah.
Or a trach.
Right.
Like he's breathing and eating on his own. And right now, developmentally, that's all he does.
Right.
Is breathe and eat on his own. But he could not be doing those things.
Right. He could not be doing those things. I mean, it is that's honestly, I think, what I want people to hear. Like, you're just who you are. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people love to be like, oh my God, poor me, I'm the victim, everything is terrible. And every time I look at you and I know how hard this must be for you. I mean, I can't imagine going through it myself because I'm not in it, but I just know how hard parenting is. But I look at you and you just always have that positive, like, okay, we're just rolling with the punches. I mean, I guess a lot of people, there isn't another choice unless, like I said, you just crumble to the floor and you just give up and you just like pass it, whatever. I don't even know what the option is, but you are just like, okay, this is what we do. And you take a walk with him like every morning, like on the beach. And I like love seeing those videos because a lot of people don't even know that helps you. It helps your mental state. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's like, you just always seem to have that like hopeful outlook in a way like, okay, this is what we're grateful for, and this is what we still have to like, strive for, and one day at a time type of thing.
And you have to keep the hope, because if I just settled into, okay, he's just going to be brain damaged for the rest of his life,
Right.
then I wouldn't try as hard to help him develop where he still can.
Right.
Like, he has physical therapy and occupational therapy every week now, and it took us a long time to get those therapies.
What do they do in those therapies, can I ask?
Some of them do passive things where we can build his muscle without him actively using it.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's about, familiarizing. Occupational therapy is all about speech and eating.
Right.
And they prepare his mouth to not react poorly to new things.
Okay.
Sort of thing. So that he doesn't, like, one of the worst things that was happening before we got his seizures more controlled was every single time he had a seizure, he would throw up everything in his stomach. Not just spit up, but every single thing, because all of his muscles contracted.
Right.
And now he's keeping things down. And when he already was only eating half of what he was supposed to in a day, for him to lose 3 ounces, that he's having now a quarter of what he's supposed to have in a day. So, that's one of the things where occupational therapy helps. And then he has involuntary movements where he's like extending all of his muscles at the same time. And the physical therapist will use that muscle movement to help position him to use it to stand, not just extending, but now your body is getting used to what standing would be like.
Okay.
So someday, if Caper ever has the cognitive function to do something because he wants to, there are mobility aids that we can use.
Okay.
And maybe we can't afford to have them in home all the time, but when he goes to his intervention programs or goes to school, they have not wheelchairs, but like standers on wheels where you strap their whole body in, it supports their head, and their individual limbs will be moved by the machine. And if he also, because of the surgery, not something he was born with, has cerebral palsy. So that's from the brain damage from surgery. He might have a more difficult time controlling his body. We don't know how severe the CP will be yet. But he can potentially do certain things someday.
And I'm assuming they're probably working his muscles to get them to a level that if he was, to stand up, they would be able to support him, and they wouldn't just be, what I mean, like just, like people in a wheelchair that can't use it. You know what I mean? Their legs, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they want to obviously build their muscle strength.
Right, yes. And like, Caper is in a completely different algorithm on his Instagram than I am. So I see all of these accessibility advocates and things where it's like, there are people who use wheelchairs but are not bound to it. They have other mobility aids depending on their energy levels or their pain levels. And, we don't know what we'll be using for Caper right now. His stroller is his wheelchair. And it gets us to the front of the line at Disneyland, so thank goodness. The perks of having a disabled child are the handicap placard and not having to child-proof your cabinets, and then Disneyland.
Yeah, obviously.
Yes.
But I mean, also, you don't know what in 10 years, in 5 years, they're going to, invent. That's the greatest thing about that. You know what I mean? Looking at, like, let's just say this happened and we were living in the 70s.
Oh, 100%.
Also, you know what I mean? I think back then, the 50s, 60s, probably even 70s, if Caper was born then, they would probably suggest that you bring him to a home. Do you know what I mean?
So he has institutional deeming. He is considered at this point so disabled that we have the right to put him in a home and have the state take care of him. There are people who don't have another option. There are people who work
There's no
jobs
There's
and
no judgment.
Can't work from home. And we're not taking advantage of that. We never plan on taking advantage of that. But what was the question?
No, I was just saying, mom brain, guys, mom brain. We both just sit here just like, what are we talking about? Oh, we were talking about Disneyland. No, I was saying that we don't even know what's going to be invented and if this was a different time in our life.
Oh my goodness. So in this process, you still have to make choices.
Okay.
And you can so easily be wrapped in regret where, our options were keep him permanently sedated.
Oh, God.
or get surgery. And in my conversations with my husband as we're making this decision together, they didn't really give us the option of sedation. They gave us the option of surgery, and we said, are there other options?
Right.
And they said, well, he'd be sedated. And I said, one of the things that would break my heart is if in 2 years they invent something else. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't get to develop for those 2 years because he is sedated. Right. But potentially his outcome could be better. And you never know. And you make the best decision with the knowledge you're equipped with at the given time.
Yes. And that's every parent, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yes. I do a lot of things and I'm like, God, there's a lot of things and I'm like, what if this, what if that, what if, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's hard. It's hard to know. And I'm glad that you have a community of people that are going through the same thing in various degrees. You know what I mean? I'm assuming in those groups, it's not just kids with HME, but kids with cerebral palsy, kids with epilepsy, right? I'm assuming it's just all different.
Well, that's one of the things I do recommend to parents out there is join multiple Facebook groups. The first one we joined was his specific condition.
Right.
And then later down the line, I joined one for parents of kids with cerebral palsy, parents of kids with epilepsy. And then some of them are like, it's more general conversation. Yeah. And like, if your disease is so rare, join a rare disease Facebook group because like they will meet different needs of yours.
Right.
So my husband and I talk often about where in the country or in the world is going to be the best place for CAPER long term.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one of the parents in the cerebral palsy group posted, what is the best state for aid in California for getting paid to stay home with your disabled kids instead of the state paying somebody else to watch them.
Oh, yeah.
And Philadelphia, one of the best places, or Pennsylvania as a state,
as a state,
is one of the best places in the country. And we wouldn't have known that if it hadn't already been asked and I was reading through all the comments.
Right, of course. And if it hasn't been asked, then you can ask. Let me ask you, what is the best advice that you've gotten from one of these, like something that you were like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like what?
Oh my goodness. How to get Medi-Cal.
Is it just such a pain in the ass?
Oh my goodness. To qualify financially for Medi-Cal in the state of California,
right.
It's not based on living in Los Angeles. Your 3-person household has to make less than $49,000 a year.
Oh my God.
And so we don't qualify.
Right. And you have insurance, right, through your company.
I have insurance through my company.
Does Charles, your husband?
So that's the other issue is...
Or is he on your plan?
He could be on my plan.
Right.
His company will only provide insurance for him.
Okay.
So if I were to leave my job...
Right.
In order to take care of CAPER full-time, if my job were to fire me because I'm not able to be present exactly when they need me all the time, if CAPER had a seizure in the middle of a meeting, I'm tending to that.
Of course.
We're in that state right now with not a lot of control. Mm-hmm. If I lose that, we lose his insurance. Okay. But we still don't qualify for Medi-Cal.
So you don't have Medi-Cal. There's no Medi-Cal.
Well, that's the advice I got from the Facebook group.
Here we go.
So there are multiple different types of waivers you can get if your child or you or anyone in your family is severely disabled enough. They can qualify for a waiver-based Medi-Cal program. It's Medicaid, Medicare, whatever you see around the rest of the country, California. CAPER has been able to qualify for it since he was born, but we've been met with so much bureaucracy getting in the way of us actually getting that. Mm-hmm. And we found out through one of the Facebook groups that there is a specific waiver that nobody tells you about at the hospital or at the regional center or the state that they can qualify, and it's a nonprofit that handles the whole thing for you. So you get put on a wait list first. You don't get it right away.
Right.
But after he's 11 months old now, after 8 months of being in the system, trying something new through the regional center, a different waiver, within 1 month of reaching out to this nonprofit, we got approval to be on the wait list and now are supposed to be getting bumped up to having actual coverage this month.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And you wouldn't have known, nobody...
No. Oh my gosh, you have to be your own advocate. You have to be your own researcher. It's just getting resources and like therapies, all that. That's a full-time job.
Full-time job.
And they're only open to be called while I'm already on the clock. I give my
Places
husband,
like that are only open from like 10 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. They're like, if you've reached us after business hours, they're open for an hour and 40 minutes. I always find I'm like, how did I, like sometimes I wake up, it's like 6, she wakes up so early and I'm like going to call some sort of establishment and they're like, we're already closed for the day at 6 in the morning because we work on East Coast time, but we also work on, Hawaii time. I don't even know. I'm like, what? Where am I?
Or they're always at a symposium.
There always somewhere. Your wait time is 75 hours. Do you want to listen to this music? It's ridiculous. It is a really ridiculous thing, and that's why I think it's so important to actually have that community of people that have either gone through it, you know what I mean, and can help you, or are also going through it to help you. I remember my brother suffered a stroke, and my father, had to bring him in, and he had to, he lost completely use of the right side of his body. He was a drummer. I mean, that was his living.
Yeah.
And they had to get Medicare, you know what I mean, and OT and PT, and it was unbelievable how many hoops they had to go through. I'm like, he had a stroke. He can't move the right side of his body. Like, I don't even know what we're talking about here. Like, that should just be like, you automatically qualify. Here you go. You know what I mean? But no, they're just like, I don't know what to do.
Right. And I don't know if it's that I'm in the algorithm now where I see it, or if media is changing, but there are these shows and movies and documentaries coming out about like even people who are severely disabled aren't able to work. It's hard for them to even get benefits, and it's so easy for them to get taken away.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. It's ridiculous. And you're right. I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, a lot of my podcast, I talk about sort of how social media can affect just everyone from, people don't go through midlife crises anymore. We go through quarter life crisis, 3/4 life crisis. Everybody is comparing and despairing the second they go on a social media platform. Having said that, there are things like the algorithm, which is kind of creepy because now that I've just set it out to the universe, I'm going to be getting all of this stuff too. They're like, Jodi, you're looking for some Medi-Cal? I mean, okay. But I mean, it is kind of scary, but it's also really helpful because again, if this was the 70s or the 80s, then you would just be like, you would have to like try to find people in person or start your own group. And you know what I mean? Again, you always have to be an advocate for yourself and for the people in your family because everybody else has got their own issues. And I'm not shitting on people except for the people that don't help. I'm shitting on you. Shitting on all over you. But let me.
That's why it's important to vote.
I know it's important to vote. So wait, it's funny because you said, all right. So obviously, Caper's algorithm is different. What's your algorithm? What pops up on your feed?
Well, I've had my Instagram since college, so it's my Instagram algorithm is a lot more NSFW, I suppose, than Caper's. Even Caper's is though, because somehow before all of the people with epilepsy that are very similar to Caper, before we started following them,
right.
Caper's algorithm got into queer disabled people in England. And
it's such a, wow.
So we get so much educational videos there, and then all of a sudden it's Halloween, and they are very gorgeous.
Yes.
Very hot. They're hot. Oh my gosh. It's God. I mean,
queer disabled community in England. I mean, hello.
I mean, any queer community, but
but specifically England because we all like the accent.
I don't know how he ended up there.
How did he end up there? Where they're like, Caper. Meanwhile, they're
here's
just
how
like,
to get on and off the tube in your wheelchair. I'm like,
oh my God. You're like, what?
Tube.
What? Okay. Yeah, you should get on and off the tube. Everybody's like, which tube are we talking about? It's like the subway system, guys.
The underground.
Yeah, the underground. Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure either other people have asked or maybe they are scared to ask. Do you want to have more children?
We talk about this a lot, and there's many facets to it. I'll say as many as you'll let me.
Say them all.
But one of the reasons my husband and I really knew we wanted to be with each other is because we both individually had already wanted to foster to adopt older kids. We wanted to adopt. That was something we wanted. And we're sitting in the NICU his first week of life before he had his diagnosis, not knowing if what was happening was going to kill him, if we were going to leave the hospital with a baby. And I told him, I was like, I can't do this again. I can't do this again. We had considered having 2 biological children prior to Caper's birth and all of that. And as time went on, I was like, well, we don't want to have to split time if Caper ever needed another surgery in the hospital and home, or I'd feel bad having to take attention away from the new baby if Caper had a seizure. And his condition is so rare, there's no recorded history of siblings ever having it. So we're not a high risk for, I intentionally married somebody who was under 40 and not a smoker because I didn't want the baby to have complications. Right. So odds are the next one would be healthy.
Right.
And we really kind of wrote it off. And I was talking and thinking a lot about, okay, well, if we already are prepared to take care of a medically complex kid, there are a lot more kids in the system who have medical complexities that prevent their biological family from being able to take care of them, no matter how much they love them. And if we can do one, why not do 2? Charles thinks that's a little much, and maybe when Caper's older, it is something we consider again. And everyone we knew for the longest time who had a kid with a disability, that was their youngest. A lot of them had older kids. Some of them only have one. And then we went to an event recently where their disabled child is their middle child.
Oh, wow.
They chose to have
another
kid.
And that child's healthy.
And it kind of opened our eyes to considering it.
Right.
We have not made any decisions for sure. Caper it requires all of our hands and is an expensive baby regardless of insurance.
Right.
But it's something we haven't written off.
That's amazing.
Biological or adopted.
You're amazing. You're an amazing human being. We're going to wrap up here in a minute. I just want to ask you, because I'm all about like game changer things that, in whatever regards, like if I'm talking about skincare or face care or things, for parenting, that make things easier or whatever. For you, what would be the game changer? What is the dream that you want to see, that if somebody was like, I can do this, and that it would make a game changer for you at everyone's life and your family?
I think normalizing childcare as a career. Mm-hmm. I was a nanny before.
I was a nanny too.
I was a Red Cross certified babysitter before that. And, it was so great for me as somebody who needed money in college and after college. It was great. And I think normalizing that as a long-term career, especially for people who don't want kids of their own.
Right.
And, people are willing to spend more and more money to have qualified childcare, and the state can also help pay for that.
Isn't it interesting? The people that take care of the most precious things, the things that are the future of our country, we pay them the least. Mm-hmm. Even parents in general, by the way. This is like a thing. I don't so much look at it, but I'm like, when they interview babysitters, they're like, well, who's the cheapest? I'm like, this person is taking care of their child. Like, that we should not be like, our brain is like immediately like, well, she's only like $20 an hour because I don't want to pay anymore. You're like, oh my God, this woman is taking care of your child. Like, you should just be like, whatever you know what I mean? I get some people don't have the money and stuff like that. But the people that, in all the capacities of childcare, yes, you're 100% right.
Mm-hmm. Have training the same way you would for any other job that prepares people truly for, keeping track of a kid's schedule, driving safely, installing a car seat, CPR.
Yes, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been really fortunate. Sitters.com, giving you a little throw out here, because I found a lot of my sitters through there, and they do have those options, that you can look for someone who's CPR trained. Yes, good driving record. You can do a background check and all of that. Some people are just like, I don't. And then you see some people on that site that have like a 1-star, and you're like, why are you? But I've been really, really fortunate with that. Even when I travel on the road, I can put my feelers out and find someone and interview them over the phone or FaceTime, and then they can watch her, if I'm on the road doing comedy or something like that. Absolutely. But yeah, it's that's a great thing, and it should be changed. Mm-hmm.
Not just for parents of disabled families.
Oh,
everyone.
No. For everyone. Because look, we're saying disabled, but there are kids out there that are on the spectrum or just have are very ADHD, and they're just really aggressive. We go through it. Kids are aggressive. They don't have impulse control, and it can really affect your day, your daily life, your day-to-day life.
Oh, absolutely. Having babysitters, nannies, a childcare that is prepared and equipped to handle adapting to kids' needs regardless.
Right. Regardless, yes, it is really something. Well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm going to leave, by the way, all the information to Caper, to Andalusia, to just, I think, to any other links that you have, too, about any other organizations. I want to leave on there so that everyone can look and educate themselves and read about them. And you know what I mean? If there's anybody watching that is like thinking like, I feel really alone because I have a child that's disabled, there are communities for you.
Caper is very responsive on Instagram. So if you have questions.
He really is. I mean, he's like so socially active. Like kind of impressive.
More than me.
I know, more than me. No, but thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you for having me.
So
I love you.
Excited, and I love Caper, and he's just like the cutest thing ever.
Thank you. So is Mackenzie.
I mean, she's really
gorgeous.
cute. I really got a cute one. Thanks. Thank you guys. I'm Jodi Miller. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you later. And don't forget, don't call me ma'am. Actually, don't ever call anyone ma'am. Mwah.